This has the worst lighting ever, but I'm gonna leave it alone. What's up, you guys? So today I'm not even going to have like a little preamble to this video. We're going to dive right into it, and it's the question that I'm asking today is if you had your wife who is trying to give birth and she is experiencing a complication during delivery, and the doctor tells you, we can only save one of them. You can either save the baby or you can save your wife. Which one would you choose? And honestly, the reason I asked this is because in the past, I have asked this question and I was actually a little surprised with the answer. But for me personally, my instinct is to tell my spouse to save the baby because our child to me comes first and is more important and whatever. But at the same time, I don't want to die. I want to live, especially if I'm young, which usually when you have a child, you're young anyway. So, am I really making the right call by me saying, no, save the baby and then force this baby to go through life without their mother? Like, it got, it's a question that it sounds really simple, honestly, but then when you start breaking it down, it gets complicated. And honestly, for me, it's really not easy to give an answer to that because there's just so much to consider. But I wonder what some of you feel like you would do. Does the paternal instinct on your end really reign over anything else, or your maternal instinct? Like, would you actually ask your, if you're a female, would you ask your doctor to save you instead, or save the child no matter what? But for me, honestly, I worry about the consequences of growing up without a mother. So really, that's my primary concern. Um, I know it would be difficult and important, but but at the same time, if I want to be alive, why am I going to be penalized for that? Why am I going to be criticized of like being a terrible mother if I decide that I'm the one who doesn't want to die? And I don't want to treat this in a really dark way, but realistically, if there's nothing wrong with me physically to where I can have another child, why not try again? You know? Like, I know it's weird. I shouldn't just say, oh, if my first kid doesn't make it, then I can just make another one. You know, it's not that easy psychologically, but it's true. I can have more than one kid unless something happens to where I can no longer have children, but yeah, like I feel like a life for a life in this case. I don't know. Imagine if I just, if I'm new into a marriage as well. I don't think it's fair on my husband to have to let go of me and then he has to go through parenting all by himself just to raise the kid. And the kid is not even born yet. See what I mean? Like, it sounds kind of messed up when I say it, but again, I have a right to my life as well. See what I mean? So honestly, I cannot even side entirely on just one answer. Like, my maternal instinct says save my child, but at the same time, I also want to be able to raise my child or raise a grow or see one grow. So again, why would I choose to give up my life so that my child grows up without his or her mother, and then they have to suffer the consequences that is attached to that? And not only that, but also the stress that my husband is also going to experience. You know, because I think the idea for having kids is that as a couple, you raise them together. But to suddenly have to go at it alone, I cannot imagine that being intriguing at all. And someone is already saying that they would save their wife. Cool. That makes me feel a little better. But at the same time, most of the guys who I have had this conversation with in the past, they said that they would save their wife. And I'm like, interesting. I expected for the answer to be more of, I would save the child, but I feel like if I were to ask that to maybe more females, they might say that. But I don't know. I'm not even going to bother. I don't find that as intriguing from that point of view. But for me personally, I feel like I want to be the one who's saved because seriously, I do not want to miss out on the opportunity of being a parent, especially if it's my first child. See what I mean? So, anyways, you guys, that's my opinion. I guess it's there's really not a right or wrong answer when it comes to this. There's the aspect of morals. Like some people will think that you would be terrible for choosing your life. Like that would be a selfish act. But no, it's not selfish for you to want to stay alive. I think we all, as living beings, fear death. And yes, giving up your life for another one is a very selfless act. But if I ain't down with that, then I ain't gonna be down with that. It's the same as saying, like, I have a few dollars in my bank account. Would I give all of it away and then I have to struggle? Like, no. I worked to have my finances so that I can survive and sustain myself. It's not a selfish act for me to keep my money and not give it to someone who needs it. See what I mean? So to say that I'm making a bad decision by me choosing my survival over someone else's, I don't know. I don't know. Let me see what you guys are saying. Um, if we look at the old days of the 12th century, for example, children were more important because they inherited the entire family tree and continued the family. I have already been in this situation. I feel sick. I wish you well, but I need to go calm down. Well, it's good to see you, Haribad, because I was wondering where you had been. The baby, because they deserve a shot at life. And Viking says hello. Hey there. See, that's the thing. That's also what made this a particularly difficult decision to make because um, that's the way I want to think as well. Like, okay, I lived all the way until, let's say that it happens to me 9 months from now. It's like, okay, I lived up to my 20s. It's cool. And I'm like, no, I'm still young. There's still a lot of things that I want to do. So, of course, I should opt for saving my child. But then again, I feel like society tries to make you feel bad about your decisions anyway. Like, yeah, it's engraved in us that our instinct is to make our offspring survive, but what made this delivery be bad and complicated anyway? Does this mean that this is the only time I get to deliver a child? If it were the only time I get to deliver a child, then I would definitely opt for not letting my child die. But if I can make it to try again, then of course I want to have an opportunity at being alive and having another kid. But anyways, that's just me. Maybe an unpopular opinion or a popular opinion, but whatever the case, I think I guess it's something that you have to be going through to determine what your decision may be. Because today I may be saying, oh yeah, I want to stay alive. But maybe when it's happening, I'm like, you know what, Hubs, I'm going to have to leave you to take care of our child. It kind of feels wrong to say that. It's either we do it together or there is no child. Now, if the guy really wants the baby so badly, like more badly than he wants me, then I may consider it. Just playing. But it's a messed up situation. I hope that um, I don't have to experience such a thing because I just don't know what would be the right course of action, or I guess the least painful one. But it's fun to imagine this and speculate and think about this because it's clearly something that happens, and someone in here already mentioned that they went through that already. So yeah. Let's see. The choice between the lives of children and your beloved is the choice between morality and your personal whim. And see, that's the thing. Morals. Do you guys ever feel like morals were invented to troll people and to bother people? Because honestly, sometimes I feel like that's it. Not all aspects of morality are wrong. Don't get me wrong, but is it really bad for you to look out for yourself, look after yourself, please yourself, make decisions for yourself? Why do we have to be feeling guilty about being I guess, self centered on some instances. If you're consistently a person who's just a complete selfish person and you have zero regard for others, then okay, you're a bad person. I get it. But if you really are not ready to give up your life, then it should be okay and respected that you opt for saving yourself. See what I mean? Is it really that bad? But let's see what else people are saying. The birth question, I would save my wife either or. Generally, you have more. Hey, why is your comment caught up? I cannot see all of it. Can I open it up? Okay. I would save my wife if it was either or. Generally, you have more chances to have children at a later time. It's a one shot, then there is always adoption as well. See, there you go. You said it exactly from the point of view that I was thinking about. If I will have the capacity to have another kid, then sure, I shouldn't have to be sacrificed. And especially if this is a particularly new marriage or something, like I would still want to live to enjoy my husband for a little longer. What is wrong with that? And in the event that I'm not able to have kids of my own, but we badly want to go through parenting, then yeah, you're right. There's adoption. So, anyways, I guess it all narrows down to what the values as a couple are. I mean, sacrificing yourself seems like a noble thing and whatnot, but if you opt for not doing that, then you shouldn't be labeled as a monster or a bad person for doing so. Horrible situation, cannot decide. In this day and age, it's so hard for the baby to live with a single parent. So even though I want to say save the baby, I would say wife, I am horrible. I don't think you're horrible for that. Shoot, that's actually my personal standpoint. I want to be saved. Um, but you brought up a very interesting point, which I mentioned in the earlier minutes of the stream, which is I don't think my husband would want to be overwhelmed by raising a child all by themselves. In the same manner that a father figure is important for a child's development, a mother's figure is important for a child's development, especially in those earlier years, like when the nourishing and nurturing and all that comes about, you know? So, yeah, no, we're not horrible people. I don't think we're horrible people. I think the people who are horrible are the people who label you as horrible without trying to understand you and where you're coming from because they try to put their values on you. And I think that's wrong. I think everyone has a right to visualize life the way they see fit to satisfy their own personal needs. But to be saying that your way of seeing life is ultimately the right way for everybody, I think that is selfish and that is what would make you a horrible being. Because you're trying to control someone. People was and will be a social being in us. It is inherent in nature to emphasize with loved ones and even strangers throughout the ages. Desire to save yourself, the first thoughtless decision. The child isn't guaranteed to live, the wife is. Is it? Is it normally the case in cases like this? Like when a child ends up being saved, do you end up losing both of them? I'm genuinely asking on a medical note. I have never looked into this, but if the child is at high risk, then yeah. Because honestly, I have never looked into what makes um, births and deliveries complicated. But if the child has a very slim chance of making it, then yeah, you already know what kind of product I turned out to be. I'm okay. I just happen to not have a healthy delivery for whatever reason. But as a human being, I function. I don't give problems. So why take a chance at bringing another life that's going to be, to put it in crude terms, problematic? So, are you really a horrible person for thinking that way? I don't think so. I truly don't. Question: would you have an abortion to save your life? Absolutely, especially if this child isn't even all the way developed. Like, Like someone was telling me that they considered a child pretty much a life when the stem has been developed or something, whatever. I forget already. But yeah, I would absolutely save my life. This child is not even alive yet. And I guess that when it comes to this question, um, the child technically isn't alive yet because it's during delivery that we're experiencing the problem. But yeah, I would get rid of a child if it means me saving my life because if I have to get rid of the child, it's because we're already having problems. So, also, I'm young. I have barely lived life. What is wrong with me wanting to experience life a little bit more? And then you might say, oh, but this kid didn't even have a chance at life already. They, you know, they just they're beginning to experience it. They're being developed. Da 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 da. You should give up your own because at least you lived some of it. And I'm like, no, I'm not satisfied. I have goals. I have things that I want to do. I avoid accidents in my life. I try to live healthy to be alive. And I'm going to all of a sudden have it taken away from me during one of the aspects of life that I'm supposed to enjoy, which is parenting. No, I'm not going to give up my life. So I don't know. Typically, if there is risk with giving birth, it's almost always complications with the baby. If the mother is going to die, most likely the baby will also. And I would anticipate that to be the case, especially if it's a child that's premature, because I would expect that they have a level of, like, what do you call that? Let's call it sensitivity to where only nourishment and nurturing from the mother will make the baby's odds of being alive increase. Hey, Garuda, good to see you. And so it turns out that it is much easier to solve the life of a young child than the life of an adult who thinks and understands the world around him. Wait, I'm tripping. What? So it turns out that it is much easier to solve the life of a young child than the life of an adult who thinks and understands the world around them. Hmm. Very valid point. Very interesting. I guess with the considering a child that's just being brought into the world, this is a new person who you get to shape and develop, and they may have outstanding contributions for society in the future when they turn into a man or a woman, whatever they grow up to be. But I don't know. It's just strange that I did not plan for that. Maybe if I was expecting a child and I knew that by me getting pregnant, I'm going to be experiencing these risks, then I'm thinking, okay, I am prepared. I have been giving a heads up. Like, Zam, you are expecting, but no matter what, your child is going to, it's either going to be you or your child. What are you going to do? In a situation like that, I feel like I may err more on the side of the baby because I have been told from the very beginning that as soon as I expect, um, one of us is going to have to go. In a situation like that, I can adjust myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually to be able to withstand that and then maybe make a more selfless decision. But but if it's something that's totally unexpected and I have, like I said, I have goals and dreams and I want my life and I'm young and all that, then yeah, I want to have my chances at life again. I want to have the chances at parenting, period. But if it's not going to be the proper route for me, then adopt. It's not it's not going to provide the same level of satisfaction and fulfillment because I would like to go through the process of giving birth, holding my child, bonding with my child, breastfeeding my child, all that stuff. So it's kind of not as easy to say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll adopt. And adoption is going to make me just as easy. I know it can get messy, messier than that, but anyways. Cost, I would save my wife. We can exactly. That's pretty much the point of view that I have. Wife, if I care or not. If not, there would be no child at all. Good Garuda, this is too cold logic. What if the wife no longer wants to have children after the tragedy? Get a new wife. Well, if the wife is too traumatized, um, then maybe parenting is no longer the right thing for her. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If a traumatic experience is what makes you no longer pursue something, you have a right not to. But if the spouse actually wants to be a father really badly, then that's a little different. In a situation like that, then you guys as a couple would need to sort things through. And maybe this is the one tragedy that is going to be the downfall of the relationship. Um, Maybe you guys were perfectly compatible with each other at everything in life except this. There may be something that makes the relationship crumble. How many times have we not heard of couples that have been together for decades and all of a sudden they decide to quit on each other? Um, Whatever the circumstances are, nothing is eternal. So maybe the best decision was for them to let go of one another. So in a situation like this, it's like if you really want your own children badly and your spouse can no longer supply that for you, then let's think from an evolution standpoint. Usually you get attracted to someone because you think of offspring. That's how we're wired to think. We want to be in the best shape, we want to have the best mate so that our offspring have the better traits and whatnot. But in this case, your mate has a defect that you cannot get over. It's okay for you to say, hey, this is no longer going to satisfy me, this is no longer going to make me happy. I think we need to split. Why are you going to condemn yourself to be attached to someone who's not going to satisfy you, who's not going to make you happy? I think it's important for both of you to be on the same page about this because that all that it's going to do is brew resentment. I know for me it would like to spend so many years with someone and they had no intention of being serious about me and they secretly just didn't tell me that they disliked a trait about me, and then I have to find out the tough way. See what I mean? I don't think that's fair. It's not fair on him, and it's not fair on me. So, yeah, I guess you lose that competition in a sense. Like, nature and I guess the times did not side with you this time. It's all right. There's always going to be someone out there for you to pair up with, someone who's going to be okay with you being infertile. Try to convince her to make another. Wonderful the world would be if children simply appeared from the air without the attendant pregnancy problems. Tell me about it. What are on trees? With a wife that has a Viking's name is really long, and then the chat is so big. Maybe that's why the message is disappearing. I would rather live with a wife that has lost the will to parent and yet have given her the chance to be a parent at a future time than gamble on the baby being viable. True, makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Uh, Personally, I would save my wife. She's the one I've built a life with. I can't imagine losing a baby, but I couldn't lose a wife. Interesting. I can see that. That's pretty much the point of view that most of us have sided with, including myself. And to give you a summary, my argument is I'm more than likely going to be young. I'm still going to have goals. I don't think it's a selfish act for you to choose your life over a baby's life. And what if I'm not ready to die? I should have a right to remain alive, and that my spouse does not deserve the stress of being all by himself raising a child. Two people it took to conceive. So, yeah, interesting. So I guess it's like more than half of us would definitely save the spouse And then I would expect that someone out there looks at it coldly and be like, you guys are just terrible people because you are choosing to save your life, so you're selfish and this and that. That's already a sign that you're going to be a bad parent. And I'm like, no, I think a good parent considers the consequences, especially emotional consequences that a child will experience for having lost a mother. So I think that's important. Do you really want to expose your children to that? But if we want to get even messier with the topic, let's remember that your cause of death does not have to be clinical. What if you save me and then I end up dying in a car crash? So it's like both your child and your wife ended up dying. So you ended up alone. Whereas if you had saved your child, you would at least have your child, which is a little piece of your wife. But I mean, let's not get that messy because that's not the point that's being considered. It is possible that I'm going to die just way later in life, and great, I have frozen. But anyways, the timer's still ticking. But if you, it's fun to speculate. It's fun to imagine how would that mess you up psychologically if in the end you ended up losing both parties. Life is just messy. Life is cruel and harsh sometimes. So I guess I don't want to say immediately because then I can say in the long run, and then that would totally contradict what I'm saying. But I guess the, at the end of the day, this can be narrowed down to make it a couple decision. Um, Discuss this type of thing with your partner before you attempt conceiving. You guys need to understand on what page you're on. Like, do both of you want kids just as badly, or is one person more exultant about the possibility of becoming a parent than the other? How about if you make sure that you're both compatible before having kids? Because it has happened to where someone has had a child even though they didn't want to, but they did so because they wanted to please their partner. And then the partner that wasn't too excited about it ended up resenting their partner because, you know, you want to please them, but now you're not excited about it. And then your partner is like, why are you not excited about our child? And it's because you're not designed nor wired to be thinking like a parent. So that excitement and passion that parenting brings them, you don't share it. If you're not on the same page on this, then I think that's the perfect ingredient for disaster. So, how about if you make sure that you and your partner are on the same page about this? That's all that I have to say, guys. I really cannot think of anything else to add to it. Um, but yeah, honestly, in sum, I would want to live. I would not want my child to grow up without the mother or grow up without the father because it can happen to where parents end up splitting. But just for the sake of consistency and staying on the topic, if it's the mother that's in question, then I think that it's important to consider that a child that ends up growing up psychologically broken from the absence of their mother, is it really worth the like living life like that? And I know that there are children out there who lose their parents at a very young age and their grandparents take care of it. But what about the spouse? What if the husband cannot handle being a parent on their own? That stress is going to be reflected on the child. The child is going to pick up on that. Like, daddy is still depressed and broken and sad that mommy is gone. And let's say that the husband ends up finding a new wife. It's going to be awkward for the child because it's not your real mother. But she's going to try to like act as one, I guess. But there is no true substitute for your original real mother. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to have an opinion when you haven't gone through that. Like, both of my parents live. So, I cannot imagine what that would be like. I can only try to speculate what the consequences would be psychologically, but that's what I think. Like everything that I say here, I don't claim to have the right answers. I just like to exercise the brain. All right, guys, that's all